So, good afternoon, you guys. I want to review AEW Dynamite for March 4th, and I do want to say a couple of things that I watched most of the show. There's some things that I did miss out on because sometimes when I watch the show, I fall asleep. I've been working like 80-hour weeks. And for those who don't know, I'm going to AEW Revolution next week in Los Angeles. My lifelong goal is to visit Tokyo. I'm achieving that next week. So definitely, I do want to get into the pattern of watching AEW and actually just having the energy to do so. Um, but overall, I do want to say there are things that I really enjoyed about the show, and I think they are taking steps in the right direction. I know like some people were saying the show is a little directionless, but I think with AEW they want to just make sure every show is must see television because they obviously have to care about the ratings, they have to care about the attendance, and they have to care about moving upward. So I think sometimes, as I said, that they struggle with compelling writing, and a lot of professional wrestling does that. It's not just throwing out dream matches or title matches, because eventually, when you do that too much, there's a diminishing return. So the show opens up with MJF versus Kevin Knight for the AEW Championship. This was a really great showing for Kevin Knight, and the match went a very long time. MJF does cheat to win. I wasn't really a fan of that because it makes it look like Kevin Knight should be the AEW champion with the fact that MJF was down for 13 seconds. Um, I think sometimes in professional wrestling you should do that when it's appropriate. Like I think there was a match between Triple H and Jeff Hardy, and Jeff Hardy actually pinned him 1, 2, 3, and that started Jeff Hardy being considered for the WWE Championship. Like I think in a match like that, it would have been appropriate to do something like where the champion's pinned and then it doesn't count because the referee's not counting. Versus this match where it's like Kevin Knight really, because Kevin Knight, in my opinion, he hasn't really done a lot in AEW. I mean, yes, he does have a drive, he does have charisma, he does have a I want to accomplish this, I want to set a goal really, but to me, he's kind of like a small S X Division wrestler. Like honestly, he looks like Swerve Strickland's little brother really. So I do hope that they don't like push him. I think he needs some pacing before some actual real like pushing him strong really. So I really think that this year he and Mike Bailey might become singles wrestlers. You can have like Kevin Knight versus maybe Bandito for the ROH championship. You could do that. You could have maybe Kevin Knight versus a member of the Don Callis family at Revolution. Like I think that a slow build is actually good for Kevin Knight, and I think that would work wonders for him. Like, don't try to make him a heavyweight champ. Don't try to do like a fatal 4 way at World's End this year and put Kevin Knight in it or something like that. Um, or don't give him like the like a match at All In for a titles for a future title shot or something like that. Like, I don't think that that's appropriate for him. I hope um if he wants to be a heavyweight champion, he has to be more believable to me. But I think that I appreciate the drive and I appreciate the I want to accomplish my goals. That's very inspiring. The next match that they had was Orange Cassidy, Clark Connors. Oh no, Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin versus Clark Connors and Gabe Kidd. And obviously who won the match because it's Tony Khan's favorite, so I wasn't really invested in it. It went a while really, and then I know Dave Finlay joins AEW, and as somebody was saying that the reaction was kind of really quiet, and the big thing was because most people didn't know who he was. And he also spent way too much time in New Japan, so most people didn't know who he was. I think he should have went to WWE years ago and then gone to AEW really, but a lot of people didn't know who he was, and now their team is now the faction of Gabe Kidd, Clark Connors, and Dave Finley's called the Dogs, which is kind of stupid. I was gonna call it retarded, but let's try to be a little PC principle here. Let's call it like it's stupid. That's kind of dumb. The Dogs. They should just call them the War Dogs, or the Dogs of War, or something like that. Like if you like, they can't use War Dogs because of copyright infringement. They can say like the Dogs of War or something like that, or they can come up with a new title, or the War Zone or something like that. Really, the dogs just dogs or the dogs sound stupid. Um, and then the next match that they had two matches. They had two squash matches. One was the Babes of Wrath versus the Iconics, and that wasn't a good decision because when you debut new people, or when the Iconics have, I believe they won some titles in TNA wrestling, and they've done a lot of good stuff in TNA wrestling. You don't want to kind of like book them weak or just kind of have them be jobbers. No, they lost to the Dirty Birds or whatever they're called, Alex Windsor and her partner. Jamie Hayter, so I did kind of feel that was kind of like, okay, you're bringing in a new team, you need to book them stronger. Let's not pull a Tommaso Ciampa and not just, okay, well, they're a shiny new toy, now they're irrelevant, really. The next thing that happened was they had Adam Page versus a local jobber. He squashes him. And then what happened was he gets ambushed by the Don Callis family. So they set up a match tonight that the main event's going to be the trios titles defended against the Don Callis family. And I'm okay with this, that they announced the main event in the middle of the show. They've not done that before in AEW. So, again, it's good versatility. I saw a little bit of Tekla versus Thunder Rosa. It was an all right match. Nothing too memorable to me. It was just an all right match. I think they're setting up Statlander versus Tekla, and it's a 2 out of 3 falls match in Los Angeles. And I'm kind of like saying to myself, I wish they had something like the Hollywood ending or something more like epic and stuff like that. I think like Statlander losing her title, feeling like maybe AEW doesn't see her full potential, like she has to kind of have that type of, I'm furious. I need to show my wrath. And Tekla, did she get fired for beating up the president of another company that she used to work for in Austria or something like that? Like there should be like this big fight feel, and I don't feel that they have that going into Revolution. And I also kind of think that, Statlander comes in and she kind of looks like, maybe a military officer or like a prison warden with like how she's dressed up, really. Like she kind of has a very different vibe, really. And I really think that if she even like changed her outfit to look different, or maybe to look like, okay, maybe I'm catching off guard, look a little different now, and then she goes wild on Tekla, I think that would have been a better usage of her tonight, or that would have been a better usage of her character. Like, now we're getting not the alien Statlander, we're getting the unhinged Statlander. I think that would have been, most appropriate. They also did a segment between Swerve and Brody King showing how violent that they are, and Brody King gets choked out by a chain. It's good. This is actually appropriate for both of them. And I like the story of Brody King trying to go through former AEW champions. So I think that this would be the best usage of Brody. This is the best direction for Brody King, going through all the AEW champions, because it makes him more credible. I think you would have really great pay-per-view matches like Brody King versus Bryan Danielson, Brody King versus Swerve, Brody King versus MJF, Brody King versus Chris Jericho, Brody King versus John Moxley. CM Punk was still in the company, Brody King versus CM Punk. Like, a lot of them have really big fight feels, really. So I really hope that, he continues to go through different champions. And you can do Brodito versus Brody King, or you can do, even like Edge or Christian Cage or something like that. Like, even like people who are former WWE champions, like kind of have Brody King keep working through former world champions, even if they're from AEW or another company, or even Josh Alexander, who's been the TNA champion. There's a lot that you can kind of do with Brody King. So I think that he's booked very well, but I hope they continue to have strong booking with him. The next thing was that they had the main event, and I saw some of it. So it was like the trios championship. So I was very happy that Don Callis family won for a couple of reasons. For number one, that they're a faction of like over 12 people. It would make sense at one point they would be the tag team champions, and they would be the 6-man champions, or the ROH tag team champions, or the trios champion. It does not make sense that they've existed for a very, very long time, and they kind of usually lose a lot of matches, or they have singles title. It does not make sense. It makes sense for them to have trios title at one point. The next thing is that I'm not really a fan of Jet Speed Rodeo, because it's kind of really stupid that they have the trios title, and then they're kind of like, well, Kevin Knight's doing his own matches. He wants to be a heavyweight champion. Hangman wants to be a heavyweight champion. Mike Bailey wants to have singles matches, or he's going after the TNT championship. So either make a storyline where they're like, we want the heavyweight championship, or we want all the titles, or and we also want to work together for the trios titles. Like, you have to kind of make that the story. Like, they all want to do double duty, and they didn't do that. It was like, oh, we're holding the trios title as paper champions, and it's on the back burner. But and you can't do that with the trios title because they've not mattered in a very long time. Like, the only time they really mattered was when the Acclaimed beat the House of Black for that. But they've not mattered with they mattered a little bit with the Death Riders, just because they were the biggest heels in AEW at one point, because Moxley had the title. With the Ops, it didn't matter. With with Hangman and Jet Speed, it didn't matter. But with the Don Callis family, it's going to matter, because Don Callis is all about the faction, the family, people working together. And if you wanted to use it to set up, even a Andrade and Takashita leaving the Don Callis family, because they make really great baby faces. I think that then you got to do it like that. And I also feel it adds to MJF versus Hangman, because MJF interfered in that match. And you can even do something where during the Texas Death Match, you have Hangman by himself, and you have the Don Callis family ambush him, or you do something where Jet Speed help him out, and then you also have Swerve maybe betray Hangman. And I don't want to see that, because you already done Swerve and Hangman in feuds before, really. So you're almost hitting the repeat button. But I think that this show had a lot of great positives to it. Um, and I think that, honestly, like, Don Callis family winning the Trios title is a step in the right direction, because it makes sense for a faction that big to hold the Trios championship. It also makes sense that you have Don Callis, who was a manager for a lot of these people, and it's like, okay, he wants to conquer AEW. He wants to have all the titles. He wants to have all the power, really. So his pursuit of titles and everybody working together as a faction, and they have, like, really a fraternity, or really, like, we got to work as this big group. It makes the most sense for him to have the titles. And then you can even have, like, a babyface faction babyface trios take it off. Like, you can do the Outrunners and Dalton Castle. You can do the Acclaimed if they start doing teamwork. You can do Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher, and Andrade if they become separate. You can do something like, you do a rematch with with it Just Speed Rodeo. Like, there's so many different groups that you can do, really. You can do Tommaso Ciampa, Mark Briscoe, and Orange Cassidy, or Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin, and Mark Briscoe. Like, there's so many, like, trios teams that they can utilize if they choose to utilize them. Or you can do what I've said. You can say Don Callis says the whole family are the trios championship. So when you face us, you don't know which three people you're going to get, really, but we will defend it. And I also appreciate Mark Davis getting the pinfall, because he loses a lot. So ultimately, this builds credibility. And then also, too, even though I've said my opinion about, like, Mark Davis always losing, it adds credibility when he wins. It's almost like with Brian Cage. Like, if Brian Cage was a tag team champion, or Brian Cage beat the TNT champion, I would be happy for that, because he loses a lot, really. So it kind of says, hey, we're hitting the reset button, or hey, we're not doing shit of, okay, well, you're a big man, and big men have to lose all the time, really. So I appreciate Mark Davis having something, because, and also getting the pinfall. Yes, and I also understand it was controversial tonight, because you had, in a way, you had Kevin Knight get buried tonight. He lost to MJF, and then he lost his championship to Mark Davis. So it does make him look bad that he lost twice. But if you do, like, a redemption thing, or he says, or like I said, have him face El Colon or a member of the Don Callis family at Revolution, I think then, or even like a tag team of two people in the Don Callis family, I just think that would be the right booking to kind of build him up a little bit. there has to be something for Kevin Knight. You can't just have two showings tonight, have like maybe the best match of his career, and then it's like, oh well, we don't know what to do with you. So it'll be interesting to see what they do for the go home show next week. Unfortunately, I can't watch the go home show because I have to work some fucking overtime. But I'll see if I can review it on Thursday for you, motherfuckers. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye.